Okay.
Yeah, it was really doing the agenda and welcoming
Who else just joined?
Introduce yourselves, please. Somebody muted who just joined.
This is Richard. Just joined.
Richard who?
Grace.
Richard Gray.
Great, this is great board attendance. Yeah. Thank you all. Woohoo! Okay, so now we're in the process of reviewing the agenda and approving it. If anybody has any amendments to it or changes, otherwise it's going to be like my vice chair would like to approve. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. Let the agenda's approved. Let's move to the review of the July 9th minutes.
Did somebody just join who's not muted? Question?
Yes.
I wasn't, unfortunately, very happy that I wasn't there in July, but I noticed that responding to market and policy changes, and by the way, this is a very rich set of minutes. And
Yes, thank you.
Terrific meeting and very, very helpful detail in the reporting. It mentions the change in the building code. Mm-hmm. Did I misread something? No, Green Building and Energy Code baseline changes impacts. Did I miss something? Was it mentioned? Was there any comment in the minutes about that? And then my bigger question is there an update on when the building code is going to come into play? Is that kind of part of the discussion? No, that's more.
But my understanding of the building code was that another solicitation went out for comment, and that was due Friday or two ago, or Monday or two ago.
It's passed.
Yeah. So I don't know. Well, I'm not expecting
So right,
future for a new building.
July was just more hypothetical.
Okay. That I don't mean to be chirping. And that comment period closed. Yeah.
And then it goes to the mayor for. Right, they incorporate court comments. Okay. So it could be January, something like that. Oh, that was sort of before that. Okay.
Hello again.
Nice to see you.
I'll have to go strawberry blonde.
Okay, did anybody have any comments on the agenda? Excuse me, in the minutes? I think there's 2 typos, but I don't know if any other comments.
Just asking there to note that the permission, the annual permission for first, but that later has the extension, was that received?
Most of the submissions have been received, and that's what. Is that what you're referring to?
The deadline for the permission.
To the
Yeah.
council.
Oh,
It looks like we just
An
noted
annual
that we were.
yes, we did. We can provide. Let me check my email because a note went down to council advising them of this, and they said okay. But let me find that so I can report it a
And they
little
did
later.
say, okay.
November 1st, roughly.
Yeah, Mark requested that extension.
So is that due November 1st?
Let me verify, and then I'll be
Okay.
able to give that update. But we didn't make the request after the board meeting.
Thank you. 2 typos, one on page 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Line 6. Actually, the last 3 words should be, no, where is it? Okay, 4 lines from the bottom of the paragraph. It should be it, but it means elsewhere. One thing in New York City versus what it means elsewhere. And then the second is fulfill on page 6. 5 lines down has 2 L's. And those are the. Anybody else have any great minutes? Anyone else? Okay.
Move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. And here's the second. Thank you. All in favor? Or are you done? Or you want
Sorry
more
about
time?
that. That was the call I dropped. Fine.
Okay. Sorry, who just joined?
Somebody dropped the call in the back.
That was Sarah being ran the call dropped, so I had to call back.
Okay.
Alex, was that an Alex?
Sarah.
Oh, that's Sarah.
No, Sarah.
Oh, Farah, Farah. Okay, sorry.
Okay. So we're voting on approving the minutes. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, they are approved. Who just joined us at the table, please? Hi.
Hi, I'm Andy Wyatt. I'm here on behalf of Nicole Steele.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move into the Solar for All program update.
Good morning, everybody.
Say a few words before you go. Madam Chair, members of the board, yes, good morning. Thank you for allowing us to do this presentation this morning to talk about where we are with our Solar for All program, which, as you know, launched earlier this year. Just by way of, I always like to mark time. We are 20 days, exactly 20 days from the end of the fiscal year. And this being the end of the 3rd year of our 5-year contract. As you know, the Solar for All program is something that is new to the contract, started this year. It is a 3-year program, And Shelley and Ty are going to give you some of our early results, I should say, about the initial launch of the Solar for All program. At next month's advisory board meeting, which will be held a couple of weeks into the beginning of fiscal year 20, we would hope to bring you some very preliminary, very raw results to tell you where we landed in FY19 so that you can see our progress not only on an annual basis in FY19, but cumulatively through the first 3 years of the contract. So we hope, Madam Chair and members of the board, that you'll allow us to give you a presentation on those results. Typically, as you know, during this time, we would give you an analysis of where we are in the fiscal year as it relates to the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund. We won't do that this morning. We're going to reserve that presentation for next month when we get together and talk about where we landed at the end of fiscal year 19, some of the new initiatives that we'll be launching in FY20. We'll probably need to go back to the barn and think about it. We know the President of the United States has issued some interesting orders recently. We need to go back and talk about how those may or may not affect our operations here as well. And so we may not have that in October, but that'll be, I'm sure, one of the discussions that we may need to have moving forward. Good morning, Dr. Long.
Good morning, folks.
So having said that, thank you very much again. And without further ado, we're going to bring Shelley up. And Ty is not new to the SEU, but he is new to the solar team. Ty has been with the SEU, was working in one of our low-income programs for a while, but is now working with Solar Team. Has received a promotion and is working with Solar Team. It's his first time here at an advisory board meeting, and
Welcome.
so I want to give him a little round of applause. Been doing great work with us as a fine addition to the Solar Team, and Shelley's about to bring you some news about how we're doing with our community solar and single-family low-income solar. Thank you.
Ted, just one clarification. When you said it started this year under SEU, did you mean fiscal 19 or calendar 19? Or
Fiscal.
fiscal. So it
yeah.
started last October.
The funding was probably approved on the contract, not in October, of course, because the council had to approve that funding because it was over $1 million. I don't think the council approval actually happened at the beginning of the fiscal year. It was probably a little bit into the fiscal year.
But 3 years is 3 fiscal years.
Right. So, but the
Through
intent
20.
clearly, because is to operate this in fiscal year 19, 20, and 21.
Okay.
Could you just quickly remind us, so this is an additional sort of pot of programming and money that is not tied to benchmark?
Exactly, Ms. Knowlton. Our traditional pot of money, which is $20 million a year for each of the 5 years of the contract, and that is Sustainable Energy Trust Fund money, is now supplemented by the money that's received for solar, which is coming from renewable energy, primarily from the Renewable Energy Development Fund. So that total pot of money for the 3 years was $32 million. So that is additive to the, and as you said, does not impact our benchmarks. For instance, the Green Jobs benchmark is not affected by this. There is a CBE goal tied to it, but as you know, the CBE goal is not a performance benchmark. The CBE goal is a contractual requirement that any contractor in the city would have. So yes, there is a CBE goal associated with this work, but it doesn't affect our low-income spending benchmark, our Green Jobs benchmark, or any of the other benchmarks.
Could you just remind me for us, how is SEU compensated for
In the same fashion as we are, the same margin that we have for the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund base budget that we have for the 5-year contract.
Is your question, there was some discussion.
Maybe let me clarify that.
And to what extent is there, does some of the contract funding that you get, compensation that you get for management of SEU cover the management of Solar for All? I just wanted to roll out that question too.
Let me go to Ms. Knowlton's question first. In the base contract, the SATF contract, the compensation is, there is a guaranteed margin, and then there is an amount of money that is at risk every year. for this money, for the solar money, there is no money that is at risk. There are no performance benchmarks set up where if we attain certain goals, there is a performance incentive that's paid at the end of the year or at the end of 3 years. There's nothing like that associated with the solar money. It's just the same, guaranteed rate of return that we have for the base SCTF contract.
But I think there were.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there were a couple of arenas where it made sense for a little bit of managerial time from the SCU contract to cover a small amount of managerial time that went into solar.
Right. So if you would say the administrative cap
Right.
of 20% applies to the solar money as well.
Okay,
And
yeah.
then
The
Shelley
SCU.
has her own team that manages the solar work. There are a few people who work a little bit on solar, primarily on SCTF. The
But
solar
that's
is
program
about
overhead. That's project overhead, right?
Program, yeah.
That's Shelley. That's under the Solar for All
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. By the way, 20% overhead is remarkably low in what I know is the nonprofit world, and I know it. I used to know it very, very well. And 20% overhead and I'm talking the high level administrative overhead, not program overhead. You always have to separate those out very carefully. It's very impressive. So I have that you're tied to that kind of stringency.
And I have a question, which is, I don't know if it's dovetailing with what the vice chair was getting at, but one of the things I've been having trouble getting my arms around is that whether it's at risk or not, the benchmarks are a way of gauging performance for the energy efficiency programs. But there isn't any similar construct for the solar for all, except DOE management or contract. So
No, we
There
have
are-
set up
there-
goals in the
right.
contract.
Yeah, they're goals, but they're not goals that are associated with any sort of performance
Penalty.
incentive.
There's no penalty.
Or penalty, right.
So I guess the question is, number one, this has come up a little bit in terms of changing benchmarks or not, or whether or not the board is going to be encouraging similar entrepreneurial efforts that are outside the benchmarks, what the goals are, and whether the board has a role in formulating them or not, because the board has a role with regards to the SEU and its achievement of its benchmarks, and or should we be adding a chapter to our annual report that we comment on?
Where you comment on the solar?
So, are we? Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, exactly.
My view would be, and I would say that the advisory board is required to report on the expenditures of the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund. This is, as I said, supplementing that. This isn't the expenditures of the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund per se. Now it is, though, there are resources clearly that we have added to the SCU to perform the solar work. Hiring Shelley and staff and et cetera, to do the solar work.
And the council never pronounced oversight. So it's the council's
Yeah,
environmental.
we've not had a conversation, unless you guys have a conversation, we've not had a conversation with the council.
To be frank and clear, the oversight of the board is not limited to any funding source. It's of the DCSCU as an operation and as an entity. So if the board wanted to comment on Solar for All program, they can do so because it still falls within the purview of the DCSCU, which the board still has some oversight role.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I think that makes sense to add a little bit of a chapter. I think especially because I guess what keeps coming to me is there, especially in this brave new world of the Clean Energy Omnibus plan, is going to be distributing responsibility for the energy efficiency and demand response programs that would traditionally come under the SEU and the benchmark framework, but then there's this whole other area, and there's the whole other area in competition with, complementary to, reaching things that come under the benchmarks, and or given more players in that arena, the energy efficiency arena, then what is it we do with this other creature. I think that's an important piece for the board to be.
And the board did weigh in, as you may recall, when we drafted the amendment to include solar for all within the DCSU's operation.
Yeah.
It was a modification that was done in FY18,
Yeah.
where we received comments from the board.
But as we are going to be presented with the fruits of our efforts on the report to date, it, makes me, and we're thinking, where have we been and where are we going and what is our goal and what is it,
So
seems
who
like
is
it
this?
would be a logical.
You just need it needs to be explicitly delineated
Yeah.
there, because,
It comes under the purview of SCU.
Yeah.
As with another program that's funded separate, through a separate stream.
Dr. Seward will be adding chapter.
Next year, not this year.
No, this year's report.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
The only thing I would caution how you want to frame it, because
No,
keep in
this
mind,
is-
solar for all started in FY19.
Yeah, you're
This
doing
is
the
what is still in
FY18.
Yeah, we're doing
Yeah,
FY.
we weren't running solar for
Oh,
all
okay,
in
never
FY18.
mind.
They're
Then
also
we'll just make some
having-
editorial remarks about what we're
So we
looking
can
for
do
next
a,
year. Okay. Never mind, just a
yeah,
footnote.
but there's a portion that says.
Yeah, going forward, yeah.
I mean, one could put a rubric and
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
The language for the
Yeah,
modification in 18, so that would be worthy of discussion.
yeah, that's
I mean, that would be
FY18.
enough to put
Yeah,
in
that's
there.
right. Yeah,
Just put a-
Adrian,
Put
Yeah.
that we amended it to include it in there, and so we'll be looking for it the next year.
that
Okay.
raises, I'm sorry, it raises another question. Are there, for us kind of newbie coming back to SU after a long time, are there any other programs under SU that are separately funded parallel to Solar for All, even if, very small ones?
Well, this year we are running an emergency HVAC replacement
Oh, right,
program.
right.
That was funded on a one-year basis, which in FY19 with some additional dollars out of the SCTF.
Right.
Right, so
But-
that,
so-
that-
but not
that
part of the
wouldn't-
contract.
That would,
It-
well,
Well, there is just one contract. Solar for all, the main operation, the emergency, it's all under the DCSU contract.
Okay.
again, for your report,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
From a
We
DOE
did not
perspective. Right.
operate that program in FY18.
Yeah, so
which is
for
your report, but
FY19.
For
we'll make
FY19,
sure
yeah.
to-
So we're wrapping up
Yeah.
that 1 year spending for 19.
And consistent with what Vicki was saying, is there a portion of the report which will reflect the omnibus bill, what we're doing, or that's going forward? Are we going to specifically address that?
I think that's
Yeah.
what
I think
you guys-
that is part of the report, and I think once we got to that stage, that's one clarifying point we wanted to discuss with Chair Corman, because it was actually passed in FY19. So when Hussein, that was Hussein's section of the report to provide some narrative on, but he said since it was actually signed into law in FY19, the part of the report on legislative changes impacting the DCSU contract, he said there were no legislative changes that impacted the DCSU's contract in FY18. But for the contract changes section of the report that we'll get to after SCU's report, we do mention that the contract was modified to reflect launching a Solar for All program, because that actually happened in FY18 to do the design and to prepare to launch in FY19. So that is memorialized in the board's annual report.
I mean, I think I would recommend that if this isn't already in the cards, is to, under the Omnibus Act or further legislation or regulation, whatever, that one say FY18 maybe wasn't effective, or was it? And the new omnibus bill came into force in FY19, March 22nd or whatever, and will be reflected and will be discussed in the next year's annual report. I think it's important to mention these things because we're just to really get relevance here.
Right, because there is a
Otherwise,
mismatch
you know,
since it's
oh,
1
this
year.
is a year gone
Yeah.
by. What's the
Right,
point
so
of
we're
even
not
reading the
pretending
thing?
not.
Right.
And I think that
exactly.
should be really reflected in the table of contents also.
Okay, and I'm still just confused because in the 17 report, we said that the legislation was pending. So we were all aware of
Oh,
it,
yeah.
so we wrote the report for 17.
So we'll give a follow.
Yeah, there were
It couldn't have taken
hearings
2
and-
fiscal years to sign, to enact.
Well, I think we
It was
may be just
passed.
carrying forward because it's difficult. Like we're writing this report 1 year to reflect SCU's FY18 activities, but things are happening in the
Yeah.
current year.
Yeah.
So the hearings were going on
Right.
during that time, but it wasn't officially signed until January and it became effective in March of this year. So it's just how the board wants to, to reflect it. So,
We figured a clever way to do it.
yeah.
But I think the consensus is that it should be reflected or
Yeah.
acknowledged in the
Yeah.
report.
Okay, good.
And it can say this will happen.
And we'll take volunteers. Okay, thank you.
And this
Sorry,
is,
Ms.
this is Donna. Along those lines, in the energy consumption section, I did include a reference to the legislation because it was moving in 2018, of course, not becoming effective to 2019, and just highlighting, as you just noted on People's Council, the implications and the impact as relates to kind of going forward.
And this is Nina Dodge, ditto for the societal benefit cost section. So
Ditto for the executive summary.
if we frame that piece on what to expect, we could also say, and I'm not volunteering to write this, reference to the new Omnibus Act will be made in the forward-looking sections of this report, or parts of this report.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't say that the progress that we're about to discuss over the next couple of minutes would not have been possible without Dr. Cooper. I want to thank you and your team at PEPCO for working with us all year to really help make this happen. Issuance of the ATIs is really,
ATI?
Pardon me?
ATI?
Authorization to install. Authorization, I'm sorry about the acronym. Really a critical part of the beginning of these solar installations. So the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, of course, with the issuance of the permits, and last and clearly not least, the staff here at the Department of Energy and Environment that has helped us, not only with the installations and stuff, but the guidelines, getting the contracts right and everything like that. I want to thank Dr. Lawrence and Hussein in his absence for really helping us work through a lot of those things. Thank you very, very much. Therefore, without further ado, shall we record?
Too late.
Our half hour's up already.
That was part of the annual report discussion.
Right.
We are, had so eloquently stole my introduction, but I do want to echo the thanks and appreciation that we have on the solar team for being able to work with the exceptional teams at PEPCO, DCRA, and DOE. It's been a labor of love, and because of the cooperation and the collaborative nature between the teams, we've been able to really move projects forward. So we're excited to be able to tell you a little bit about our accomplishments and what we've done and what the future holds for us. I'm really excited to have Tyre here. He's going to do the second part of the presentation, but one of the things that's been evolving for the solar team as we grow and as we mature and figure out our path forward, we are learning from our mistakes, we're learning from our successes, and so we want to institutionalize that, and we want to make sure that we have a really solid program with solid foundations that can sustain well into the future. And so that's really where Tyre's expertise comes in. And so he's going to help us to capitalize on what we've been doing and the great foundation that this program already has. So I have a slide up here for those on the phone who maybe don't have my presentation.
We just sent it out.
We emailed it. But this slide,
I'm sorry.
sure, no.
But I am the acronym.
Yes.
And I know, everybody knows that I know a lot of the acronyms that I ask about, but there are some I don't know, and I'm always conscious that there are many people who don't know them. And in the environmental, this is just a plug, environmental community, we're often, or in any community, called on the fact that we're not good communicators to the general public and we don't get the buy-in that we should be, that we don't aim for the buy-in that we should be. So this is one reason I'm such a zealot on this issue.
Yep, and I'll
That being said, we'll just see REF.
right.
And ATI and DCRA.
Yes, and I've never been one to not have enough words to to present. So I usually do go through my acronyms and everything. So if there's anything I miss, please let me know. And thank you. I will be more conscious of that in the next presentation. If you'll have me back, of course. So so the CREP proposals, these are the community renewable energy facilities, otherwise known as community solar. We are fortunate to be working with 5 solar installers, what we call our subcontractors, across the city, all of whom except for one, are CBEs, and we have currently in our portfolio 85 CREF or community solar projects. The output from these projects will be delivered by PEPCO to DOEE as a subscriber organization, and then DOEE will take and distribute all of that output to low-income or income-qualified individuals, residents across the city. So it's this great collaborative effort where these projects are built on warehouses, religious spaces, schools, all over the city, and then the output then is shared among people who really need it. So we've had some great success thanks to this collaborative team with PEPCO and DCRA and DOEE. We've issued all the work orders for all 85 projects. Many of those projects, 78 to be exact, have DCRA approval for their permits, as well as authorization to interconnect from PEPCO. PEPCO has done an incredible work getting these done quickly and efficiently. And we're so appreciative of their effort to move things really rapidly forward. We have 6 projects that are kind of in an iffy situation. They have some challenges. We're trying to work with them. And that's one of the things that we have been doing as the facilitators of this program, is trying to help the installers overcome any challenges that they face to installing renewable energy. So we're trying to work with those 6, actually 7. We've got one that is challenged by the timeline, so we're hoping that we can get these 85 projects up and running and the output delivered to DOEE. But we do have a couple of challenges going forward. But I think the really impressive number is the 78 number, which is a huge amount of solar that we're going to deploy across the city for the benefit of the residents here in DC. Any questions about
Just out of curiosity, are these projects visible, like if you're on the New York app, will you see them?
Some are. I've got a couple pictures for you. Some are. A lot of the projects will be going on warehouses or flat roofs, which is very standard here in the District of Columbia. So it's not as visible, but we will certainly have some signature ones that are very visible. We have our signs out around the city every time a project goes in, letting people know that the Solar for All program is installing their solar panels.
On these larger community solar installations, how much roof repair work had to be done? Or is this part of your presentation as well?
That's a great question, and honestly not something that we have necessarily tracked. There was a considerable amount of buildings that did require structural changes to support the solar. And that was often an arrangement made between the installer or our subcontractor and the building owner. And how the building owner benefits from this, because obviously they don't get the solar. The solar is coming to DOEE. How the building owner benefits is they're generally given a site lease for the use of their roof, a site lease. So it would be a fee that they receive either all up front or annually.
Renting the roof to.
Exactly. So what some buildings have arranged in exchange for that lease amount is a new roof, because roofs are an incredible cost to a building that often doesn't have a very good payback. So to be able to have the new roof in exchange for the solar, supporting the solar is a really good opportunity for these building owners.
And hopefully that's their pieces, that aspect,
In marketing too.
the marketing, yeah.
Yes. So,
As unsexy as it might be to others, it's at the root of our participation.
it really is, and Tyra's gonna talk about a little innovation that we're looking at in the slides a little bit later, so, with regards to roofs. But, yeah, you're right, it's not the sexiest part of solar, but it is really necessary if we're gonna have this rapid deployment of solar across the district.
So we'll look forward to it.
Real quick question, now, this is very impressive, congratulations. Congratulations. But, what's the projected output, how much are you actually,
So this will be about 7 megawatts of solar, which can impact, close to 10,000 individuals.
follow-up?
And that's the 85,
This is the 85 project, yes.
and the 7 that are quote-unquote challenged for interconnection. What percentage of the 7 megawatts is it the representation? Are they bigger installations? Is that why they're having trouble?
No, actually, you know, in some cases, it's just a perfect storm of location, timeline, maybe upgrades that need to happen.
So not size of output
Exactly.
or input.
And actually, some of these are some of the smaller projects that we have, and sometimes that's where the challenge is.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody remember, or familiar, there was legislation introduced, for, I think it was make-ready roofs or something about facilitating installation of solar,
Solar flow.
for solar.
When
Did that happen?
when that legislation passed, I'd say almost 2 years ago, there was a provision to allow for some money, $1,500 to be set aside for $1,500 for upgrades to panel box. But that was, that was a conversation that was really around the same time. I don't know if any provision was made for communities of single family. $1,500.
Up to 3,000.
Right, I know when the Solar for All legislation, when that was passed, which was the Renewable Portfolio Standard Expansion Amendment Act, language was inserted that allowed REDF to be spent on not just solar, but also electric upgrades, as well as, like, that's the panel boxes and roof repair. There wasn't a dollar amount in that specific bill, but maybe there's a different, it just allowed REDF to be spent on
Right.
Yeah, on
But
those.
the one about 3 years ago had the dollar.
a different bill, okay, yes.
That was in solar for all.
Yeah,
So the community, so maybe you could check that?
absolutely, yeah. Check on that.
You said,
Speaking of single family,
There
next slide.
we go, Sam.
So, we're currently in process of building 100 homes, single-family homes, which represents 500 kilowatts of output for these single-family home owners. And we have currently 75 homes that are in process. These are actually all being built at this point in time. They have their work orders, they have DCRA approval and TEPCO approval to install. We have 18 homes that have some challenges. They're being processed. We have a little bit of issue with procuring equipment, but we're scrappy and we're working through that because beams are pretty scarce in the industry, and so we're actively working to help these installers to find the beams that they need to get their projects up and running.
the what?
So, a lot of the the way the solar is built on single-family homes, which many of the homes in the district tend to have flat roofs. So a beam is put across from parapet wall to parapet wall, and the solar panels are laid out on the beams. Well, these beams have become very scarce since there has been a tariff on aluminum and steel. So it's challenging for the industry to find the numbers that they need. The main supplier of this beam, called Schroeder, decided to pick up U.S. operations out of the States. So everyone's kind of been scrambling to find the beams that they need and to get them quickly. So we feel a little bit like being brokers over at DCC, trying to find a couple here and there. Fortunately, we have a wonderful solar community. Everybody's looking out for each other. They want to see each other's success, so they're all willing to work together. We work very closely with Greg, and if they have extra beams, they send them to whomever needs them. So, yeah, it works out. We're confident that we'll be able to facilitate all the beams that we need for all of these projects.
I see a new role for the whole advocacy and the China trade. As long as we're getting entrepreneurial.
Careful what you wish for.
Little battles,
Yeah.
nothing really big, right?
There's tariff on solar panels too.
Yeah.
So we would have our work cut out for us in the solar industry. So, but these are going up.
To get voters out.
Fortunately, with homes, this represents about 5 kilowatts per home, which provides a minimum of 50% of relief on the output from that home. So homeowners can expect to see about $500 a year in savings. It's really a incredible program for people who are trying to do more with less, who maybe are making tough decisions between keeping lights on and putting food on the table. So this really is a huge assistance. On the next picture, I just wanted to show you some solar in action. Nothing better than seeing solar. So this is one of our installers, Flywheel. They're putting 120 kilowatts on condos, low-income housing in the district. And they're working very closely with DOEE to ensure that the residents of these condos would be subscribers in the program for the free solar. So that's one picture.
Is that, which program does that fit in?
These are all craft pictures that I put up here today. So this is Flywheel. This is New Columbia Solar. They have about, I would say 12 locations. They have multiple locations, but this particular installation is 12 locations with one building owner. That's totaling about 682 kilowatts.
Where are the beams?
Oh, so this is for these larger projects. Instead of beams, they have these racking or mounting systems here that are different because the span of the building is too far. So they have to do the system. But it's called a ballasted system. And then this is and the fun thing that I love about this picture is they have 2 groupings of projects. So here, and it's all on low-income housing. So here's one of the projects on a pitched roof, and I can't even believe they're up there like that. And then in the background, you can see their other project. So they've got solar covering that as well, and that's about 630 kilowatts of solar.
What's it covering in the back?
So the roofs, the flat roofs back there are all covered with solar in the back.
Is that where they're working?
I believe it is.
It looks like that.
I believe it. So just want to show you some fun pictures. And this is our solar DCSEU in the community. One of the things that's been fantastic about the DCSEU Solar for All program is that it's really gotten our team members out there working with seniors, to see if there's a match for them with residential housing. This is the team that went up and put solar on that roof. It's our communications specialist, Lativia Queen, who had a chance to go out and take some pictures. So it's been great for DCSE to be out there and be boots on the roof, essentially, looking at these solar projects. On the next slide, we have, I wanted to let you know about our solar team and how we're growing. I talked about Tyre's role with the solar team, and we're really excited to have him help us, sort of institutionalize what we've done this past year and solidify it, but also look at where we can go and how we can grow the program. I'm Shelley. We have a solar program manager who we hope will be starting in the next couple of weeks. We'll be working on solar leveraging and helping to work with the SRECs, the Solar Renewable Energy Credits. We have a Solar Renewable Energy Credit leveraging program. They'll be working on that. Charlene Morton and Yvonne Zafar are solar program associates, and they do incredible work working with each of the subcontractors to ensure that they have a continuous path forward with installing all of that solar. We have 2 solar interns, Lindsay Schwartz, who's over at CW, and Sarah Beth Irvin, who just graduated from college. And Sam Jacobson is our peer solar technical coordinator. One of the requirements for DCSEU is that we do a substantial completion report, essentially to ensure that what's in the permit is what's on the roof. So we want to be good stewards of the monies that we're giving out, and we want to ensure that these projects are going to function as promised. So we have Sam who's going out to all of the sites and doing these substantial completion reports to do that quality control, quality check to ensure that everything is as it's supposed to be.
Are you doing any follow-up on implementation, like 6 months in, a year, and how's it going? The stuff
So
that
we
you're
have
prepared.
a partnership with these craft projects for the next 15 years. We will be not only staying in partnership with them, but each year we track to ensure that the output promise to DOE materializes for that given year. So DOE will continue to offer the solar. That's over the next few years.
Does SEU manage that relationship, or does DOE?
SEU will manage the relationship of ensuring that the output materializes over time. DOE has a direct relationship with the subcontractor to ensure that they receive the power.
Will the reporting and I guess management of the program, will that fit into the contract?
Yes, that is my understanding. I don't know, Ted, you have.
No, there is no reporting requirement that is set up beyond the first 3 years of running solar. So in the out years, where we're talking about the management of the relationship between DCSU and the subcontractor, if BIC remains the contractor of DCSU, they will continue to manage that relationship. If we were to bring in a new contractor to manage the DCSU, that those obligations will transfer to the new contract. But the subcontractors that are installed in the crafts are on the hook of providing on the next 15 years of the craft, regardless of who the actual contractor is of the DCS.
And that would be, so if sadly the contractor would just switch for the SEU, that would be fine, that generally would work.
Yeah, it would be transitioned to whomever is contracted to manage the DCS.
So the requirement you were talking about, the first 3 years with the reporting requirement, is it commensurate with this current contract? That's the contract provision, or where is that?
Well, the reporting requirement right now is simply for the subcontractors to build the craft. Once they build it, DOE essentially manages the subscription and the relationship between the subscribers and the utility. DOE would manage it. The only thing that the SEU would ever be called upon if there's a maintenance issue with a particular system and the contractor, hasn't shown up to do X, Y, Z, then there are certain recourses in the contract that the VIC would then have to enforce to get the contractor to complete the O&M maintenance. But outside of that, there's no reporting requirements on the subcontractor or VIC.
So is the success of the program getting reported by DOE in the context of an annual budget or?
Yes,
or
we
is that here?
will report the number of subscribers and the amount of energy they receive each year and so forth. That will all be on DOE.
To report to the council?
Yes, we are required to submit an annual report to the council on the subscribers into the refs.
So has one gone in yet?
No, we haven't done one because we
We
haven't
just started.
built the craft.
And was the prior year, was there a report on the plan or the targets?
What we've submitted to council so far was an implementation plan for Solar for All. I think we submitted that going on 2 years now. I think it's the beginning of, was it FY7, January of FY17, I think, it was submitted to council. So that plan laid out what we will be doing for 3 years to come. I think it's going to be updated next fiscal year. And then we'll report to council at that time what progress we've made with installing crafts and amount of subscribers and so forth.
I have a question. Vicky and Megan, was there a question behind your question about the contract?
I just, from my experience, there's a tremendous amount of O&M that's required to operation for solar arrays, and I was switching out modules to maintain module production. And I just want to make sure that is that someone, is there a performance guarantee, and who is in charge of making sure that?
Yeah, and Shelley can even speak to this. In the subcontractors, there are certain production guarantees that the subcontractor is required to deliver every year. Failure to meet those performance guarantees, then there are certain penalties that are associated with those performance guarantees. So it does ensure that the maintenance is done on the systems on a regular basis to ensure the production is there.
So that's helpful. Making sure it's carried over by SE, whatever the actual contract.
So we do have our video, which we're gonna send out a link to everyone. Everyone's got the link. We have to shut down certain speakers and the YouTube things. Right. So we're not gonna actually show this today, but this is a video that was produced by our marketing team, and it shows creating green jobs in DC, and I really recommend everyone take a couple minutes out of your day and enjoy it, because it just sort of shows the feel-good nature of solar and how everyone is participating in solar and is creating these great green jobs that are helping people across the district. So on our next slide.
And if we send it on to people who might be clients, customers, Solar for All, does it explain what itself?
So this is really just focused on our creation, the Solar for All program and the installation of this particular project and the green jobs associated with it. But at the end, it does give our website. You can always liberally give out my number to anybody. I'm always happy to talk to people and bring in new people. We're learning about different buildings all the time and people who want to participate. So we're really trying to ensure that we institutionalize that and make sure that we reach out to them and teach them how to get engaged in the program. And for all those projects that we talked about earlier, the 85 crafts and the 100 single-family homes, this is what it looks like on the district map. You can get a feeling of where our impact is around the city. And it's hard to, there's so many projects here.
47.
Yeah, so it's hard, and right down here as well. So it's kind of hard because they're kind of all overlapping each other, and it's like whole neighborhoods that are getting done. But it's really exciting just to see the impact of this program and the reach and how much solar will be up in 20 minutes.
I have a question, in Ward 7, and this is maybe it's for Pepco as well as for the Solar for All folks, are there any feeders that, is Pepco flagging any feeders that they feel that might become overloaded, given where you are now with Solar for All installations in the cluster areas with whatever other installations there might be not Solar for All? Have you gotten any?
So this is Jana. We do not have any constraints that have been identified for our feeders and on our system. We do have a hosting capacity map that is available to individuals publicly to be able to access to review such information. But at this time, which is an extreme positive, we do not have those constraints.
Right. Thanks, Donna. Well,
Across the district and more broader than Ward 7.
right. Then I'll thank you very much, and that's very important sort of current baseline. And flipping it back to Shelley and higher. Are the constraint maps that I'm sure you're using influencing your own decisions at this point about what projects to take on? In other words, are there certain areas that you're starting to lessen your involvement in because the constraint maps are showing potential constraint?
That's a great question. How the process works is that the subcontractors come to us with suggested locations during our RFP process. So we're not exactly driving where these projects end up. We're facilitating projects that are, somewhat far down the line for these subcontractors. We're helping by incentivizing them to get over the finish line. So what we've seen, though, and where our incentive has been so valuable, is that for these buildings that need new roofs, for example, or for buildings that maybe are smaller, like a religious institution, where it wouldn't necessarily make economic sense, the incentives really do help to push that project over the line. And that just benefits everyone by being able to get more solar up.
Would the interconnection process of certification address that? Would you be able to interconnect if there was a concern with overbuilding, over capacity? No?
So that's more of a question for Donna.
And the way it's been working so far, Pepco has really been identifying these issues pretty much at the ATI stage, giving early notice. Usually when they give authorization to install is because to install. When you get the permission to build is because they've done some vetting of the area to identify any kind of constraints, rather than waiting on the back end when they come out to interconnect and figure they can't interconnect because it's going on a particular feeder.
That was my thinking. Yeah. So the answer is yes.
Yes, Pepco does.
Flagged at least.
Yes.
And some of these issues are being hashed out in the RM9 proceeding, correct? For interconnection of community solar facilities.
They are.
In the Public Service Commissions.
Yeah, right. The RM9 is dealing with CREF and net metering and so forth. So we're working through some of those issues, and DCSCU has sent someone that has talked about several of the issues that we've had. Our last meeting was in July.
When is the next?
To be determined. We're working through some internal things with Pepco.
Oh, okay. So you say constraints. Well, question constraints in when there's any possible volunteer.
Right, and making sure that the timelines can actually be met, that they're just not there, because part of the issue is that when you have a CREF, large or small, there are different rules that apply to both of them, and making sure that those deadlines are met on both sides, so that way a contractor isn't penalized for not meeting a deadline. Right, absolutely.
On the next slide, So when I was here at the last meeting, the advisory board so wisely asked for some lessons learned and what the future looks like, and I thought this was a great place for Tyre to kind of step in. So go easy on him. He's just getting the feel for this, and I'll be here to jump in. But you know, we really have had an incredible process. This was a really imaginative, very innovative program, and so when you try something new and different, you always have little hiccups along the way. But I think that we come out stronger on the other end, and we look forward to what the future holds. I'm going to turn things over to.
Well, as Shirley had mentioned, we are at the end of finish on really looking. But we really want to look back to see what we've done really well, see where our error rates would be at. Specifically, we looked at the RFP, and what we came up with was very clear and concise. Was well written. We also met with our subcontractors. Some subcontractors really get an understanding of how they felt about the entire process, what worked well for them, and how we can improve just in our relationship with them and ensure successful completion of our projects. As far as contract management, one, to ensure that there's a template that is utilized by everyone to work from and to minimize the burden of the legal teams. Scheduling is another area of improvement that we saw that needed some work. We want to ensure that there's a schedule that allows for materials and permit and other delays. And that's, I think, throughout the entire review process, we realized that contractors were not able to get certain equipment at a certain time, and they could not meet the deadlines and achieve specific milestones. Based on the stakeholder meetings we had with the subcontractors, one thing they really stressed to us was to launch the RFP at a more convenient time for them, to ensure that they were able to properly present their bids and just go from there.
What is considered a more convenient time for subcontracting?
So this is the contractor wish list. So some of these things we can facilitate, and some of these things we can't. But you know, we wanted to show a representation of some of the challenges that they face. But you know, this last year came out right before the holidays.
Oh,
it was
okay.
a really tough time, and so we're fortunately going to be able to get it out to 3 months earlier than the holidays. So I'll give it a couple weeks.
That's for the next round.
And I think overall, from everything we received from them, they were pretty pleased with the process.
And what does this mean allocating on KWH instead of KW?
So it was one of the suggestions that they made. We currently give the incentive based on kilowatts as opposed to kilowatt hours. And so there was
Generation is supposed to be.
So there was a suggestion to change it over. You know, as I said, we're looking at everything that was a suggestion, and that they internalize some of these.
To what end would that recommendation, what would that intend to achieve?
Yes, the kilowatt, so it's what the permitted, for them, it's the permitted amount of expected output, and the KWH is the actual output. So they were saying that they should be incentivized on what the actual output was, which would be challenging for us because we have to monitor it in a completely different way.
Do you have standardized pieces list or other inputs for production or estimates for the RFP?
We do. So one of the things when we monitor the output going forward, we have a system that we have in place where we not only look at the expected output, it has to achieve 90% output, then we weather normalize it and also keep this to baseline. And then every year is measured against that baseline going forward.
Some of us are not completely. here, but,
I'm trying not to go too into.
no, that was
the-
your, I think I understood what you're saying. What you're saying is that you start with an estimate, which is an estimate for the generation of a particular installation based on all sorts of estimates, national, this, whatever. And the contract is framed on that basis. But when you're following year over year after you actually establish how much generation is to be expected rationally, assuming the systems are working well.
Right.
And
But on the upfront side,
Yeah.
we're incentivizing them by the kilowatts.
expected,
the
estimated.
expected- So the kilowatts that they put on the grid. That's how we incentivize them.
Now, big picture, nationally or internationally, I think many people don't realize that solar generation estimates play such a huge role in finance and so on.
Sure.
You know, that makes sense when a whole sector is starting up. But am I hearing that the actual solar contractors are moving ahead of that based on their experience? They actually have a better idea of what they can expect, that the estimates can become more refined over time, and that maybe that should be rolled into the methodology, not just FP, but what are best practices doing nationwide in this arena? Should you be, your request a reasonable one in terms of best practices around the country?
We're kind of defining that practices. I mean, a program like this has not been implemented anywhere across the country. And so, in terms of tracking output and guaranteeing a certain level of output for DOE, I haven't seen anything like that. So we're using what resources we have. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory and their PV system. I don't know what that stands for, but it's PV system. And, we're using NOAA data to whether normalize it because rain and snow happens over time. And so,
And that's for the tracking after the award has been made.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that's as far as.
So I don't want to interrupt your flow, but I'm curious that we have more topics to get to.
we have one more
Okay,
important slide.
okay.
Yeah, just lastly, some innovations that we're looking to implement, specifically the remote inspections, which will help expedite project completion. And this was touched on a lot earlier, but we're also looking to create a roofing fund to help customers who have already been qualified. A lot of the issues we've come across is, individuals who be qualified, but the roof would be repaired, and there was no money for them to repair the roof. So we're looking for fiscal year 2020 to implement that as well.
And then the next slide talks about how we are prepared to get our RFPs ready for 2020. Our craft target and our single-family homes targets are largely the same for 2020. We're currently finalizing the drafts for both craft and single-family. And of course, as always, we're looking to work with contractors to the local economy to grow the solar industry here in DC. And on the last slide is our schedule.
Great.
We're moving forward.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move to the SED annual report.
Okay, so did you want to do, just jump straight to the technical writer? So
Am I missing something?
I think actually, no, we can accomplish both with having Sybil come and walk us through the draft. Well, just thanks to everyone who submitted their sections of the report, and wanted to introduce Dr. Subodh Mathur, who is our technical writer. When we went through the procurement process after the board instructed us to do so on the bid, and he's no stranger to the board, the SEU, so he can just jump right in.
Okay.
And he started to assemble the various sections of the report, and so we're hoping that this can sort of be a working meeting wherein we identify pieces that still need to get in.
Yes, that'd be great.
Yep.
Okay, but before we jump in, let me just say a couple of words. First, I feel like I'm 22 years old again. Because when I was 22 years old, I had to choose between being a writer, editor, or an economist. My heart was being writer, editor.
Oh.
But so I'm really feeling like, oh my God, I'm 22 again. Here I am being a technical writer and editor. More seriously, I have just been selected by Johns Hopkins University School for International Studies as an adjunct professor. And I will design and teach a new course on energy economics starting January 2020. That has some consequences. As a result of that, I decided to give up my World Bank international work because travel is not really compatible. And here's the plug. I'm now looking for more domestic work. Whether as a writer or as an economist or as a professor, doesn't matter. I'm going to be looking for it. I'm interested in it because it was a big chunk of my time, more than 100 days a year at the World Bank. But now that cannot be there anymore. Also, I'm getting old. It's not fun to be traveling all the time. So, looking forward to that. Okay, let me begin by pointing out the sections that we have not got. The rest are there.
Thank you.
Right? We don't have the gas company's submission, but in case they don't submit it, we will try to piece it together from the various reports that we have. But
And just on that, I should add, not to throw Ronan out there, but and we didn't announce. Sean Scully resigned and he left Washington Gas and went to Fannie Mae. I think he announced it at one of the working group meetings, but I think this is the first meeting of the whole wherein he's not here. And in his stead, Ronan is the manager of government relations and public policy at Washington Gas, and he will be going through the appointment process to be appointed to the board. So in the interim, in discussing with Chair Corman and Subodh, I believe Sean got most of his information from the NMR EM&B report, the Evaluation, Measurement, and Verification. So given the constraint of time, we asked Dr. Subodh to see if he can replicate that, and then, just working with you to finalize.
And I'll chat with, I think Stephen Burr has been here at a couple of meetings, so I was chatting with him earlier, so we'll get something in as well. I'll contact you, so we'll work to get something together. Yeah.
Okay, we're also missing the going forward piece, the innovation piece, and the two tracking goals, which is the reducing growth in peak demand and the reducing growth of the largest energy users. So those are still to be sent to us, but there's enough time. Okay, which makes me go back to the original timetable. There's been a lot of discussion here about an extension, and as you know, my contract runs only till the end of this fiscal year because that's how it can be. But I have assured Teresa that I will see this report through.
Oh, thank you.
No matter what happens, whether they give me more money or not, that's between us, not between you and me. I will deliver your report as quickly as possible.
I appreciate that. I was under the impression that we're able to extend the contract on if need be,
Yes, I just circled back. We did get the 60-day extension, and that's from October 1, because October 1 was the original due date, and the request that went to council was just in case we needed it for a 60-day extension.
So that's the 12th one then.
December.
Yes, it is,
Okay.
but that's only if we needed it, but, we'll try to
So,
make
but
it.
I thought we were also able to get an extension of this technical support contract.
Well, it would just be an administrative, we would just go back through our procurement.
Okay.
to
All right, fine.
kind of
Anyway, it's not,
We don't have to.
Right, so there-
it doesn't affect us.
And then
We'll get it done.
the second issue I wanted to ask was that I think the AOBA representative is on the phone. We historically had that last item, the reducing growth of largest energy users tracking goal, I believe was written by AOBA in times past. And so not to put the gentleman on the spot who's kindly filling in while Kirsten is on a maternity leave. By the way, did she give birth? Is all good?
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Is
So-
AOBA's rep still on the phone and off mute?
Kevin.
Yeah. Hi, this is Kevin Carey. I'm representing AOBA, but again, I'm stepping in for Kirsten, who's been on maternity leave. So if you can, I'll take a look at it and see what she had done in the past, and see if we can replicate that for you for this as well. So
Thank you so much. And if I can help you with anything, this is Vicki. Please let me
Okay.
know.
Yes,
And tell me your name.
I'll reach
again,
out to you. Thanks, Vicki.
Kevin Carey.
Kevin Carey. And this is
Kevin
Teresa
Carey.
with DOEE. Kevin, I'll send you the report directly after this meeting and just highlight the portion that she did her contribution on
From the past year.
from the past
Okay,
year.
That'd be great.
that'd be great. Happy to help.
And I don't recall who did peak demand. Would you say?
I did that last year.
Okay,
I'm happy to do that again.
that'd be great. So, so I think we have names for each of them, for each of these sections.
And the solar for our little host sneak preview.
Does anybody want to volunteer for solar for all?
I could probably plot that into the forward.
Okay, great, great. Okay, thank you. I think Shelley was kindly raising her hand to volunteer with this. Anyway, maybe.
And
I
would
can
that
talk
include
solar all day
the,
long.
would that include new applicable legislation? On the bus.
Sure, I mean, I think all of us have sprinkled it in anyway, so,
So we
yeah,
just need a,
sure. Thanks.
Okay, before we jump into the nitty-gritty, let me just say a couple of sentences on how I'm thinking about my role in this report.
Okay.
I want to check the flow, the narrative, to make sure that every fact presented there has some implication. I find that there are paragraphs which are true and correct, but I don't see why we are presenting that information, and I'm flagging that. On the technical side, apart from whatever I know about grammar and so on, my teachers were quite good at it. I don't rely on that alone. I use the big tools built into Microsoft Word, and I have a subscription to Grammarly. So I use those mainly to make sure that it's more readable, right? One of the criticisms of communication is that the reports are written in the gobbledygook that all of us know, but then they are not readable. So both Microsoft Word and Grammarly have a readability scale, and I'm very good experienced at using that readability scale to provide the same information in a much more readable form. Okay, there are some technical issues, but you will anyway get to see the drafts. Okay, so let's go to the, so the executive summary we just got today morning from Vicki. I haven't had a chance to look at it since I was already on the metro, but the rest I was able to include it here. And we already have some information, like the table 1 I'd already got from the NMR report.
We inserted the table in the middle where you had the placeholder for table.
Excellent.
Right.
We already, so we have the, we are basically, I'm basically trying to follow the format of the 17 report. Right? It's not so difficult to do that, and you will see some. So there are no comments of mine on this because I didn't have a chance to look at it yet.
So now a question is, the executive summary was something that everybody weighed in on pretty substantially. Because I think people wanted to get the tone right, they wanted to get the gestalt correctly. For this section or any other sections, what would be the process for people to send in their comments? One of the things when I had done it that was sort of a challenge was sometimes people would send in different comments with regard to the same sentence, so just tracking it and letting everybody see everybody's comment list.
I can handle multiple versions.
Okay.
Let's say it with all confidence.
Okay, so
if
we
you
should
send
also...
me 19 different versions, not an issue. everybody can send comments independently. Wherever I have an issue, I have a comment on it. Whoever wants to reply on it or to comment on it can comment on it and send me their own version. It doesn't have to be coordinated. Trying to coordinate creates much more problems. Because then people have to be in some kind of a schedule, and then people say I'm too busy, and then everybody's held up. Long ago, I learned how to handle multiple versions. Not an issue.
Well, in terms of getting this done getting everybody's comments so that they're comfortable and maybe pointing out where there are areas that we do need to have discussions as a group. Sometimes we found ourselves in that situation wanting to have a group resolution of what the particular tone or message was going to be. Should we be saying everybody review what they have now, get comments into in a week, and we'll see another draft and add the next sections? Or?
Yes. If you get me the comments, what we could say is that I will issue a version every Monday.
Okay.
Right? Based on whatever comments I have received, and showing, I can merge comments into one single document. So I won't send you 19 documents. I'll merge the comments. It's very easy in Word actually to merge them. So I'll merge the comments into one document, send you my response to those comments, and see how it has been treated. And we could have a version for you every Monday. So Sunday night, I send out the version so that you have. I work every day. I goof every day. So every day is the same. If my wife wants to go shopping, I go shopping. Okay? I don't ask what day it is. That's why I don't have a job.
So
let's go through this. There's no comments on the executive summary. There's no editorial changes, nothing. So let's just go through it. So now the second part is the board's activities this year. What I got was just this paragraph from DOEE, and I added this part here. The board believes it is difficult to organize 12, because this year you had only 9 meetings and last year you had 12. So I thought we should say something that we think 9 is enough.
So I did have a question about that, and that was about as far as I got in reviewing that I think we had 9 meetings, but we might have had 1 or 2 calls.
Yes.
Which count as meetings, but I guess the other question was.
It's already included there.
In the 9?
In the 9?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question I think was, I went back and I looked at why it was we increased it to 12. And what we said was that the board was finding it difficult to keep momentum or remember what was going on from one meeting to the next if it was only every other month, so we increased it to monthly. We had something that was specific to that we needed to accomplish, so we had monthly meetings. So I think it's worthwhile just quickly to ask if that is the sentiment. Is 12 too much? Is it too difficult? Is 9 enough? And then if it's 9, how are you going to do it? Every 6 weeks. So should we just take a quick vote while we have everybody? Is that a recommendation that we go down to 9 or stick at 12?
A recommendation.
Yeah.
Which is that we say 12, but we review the need for the meeting.
Which is, I think, what we were doing also with.
So we have a placeholder, but then
we
review the meeting. But that's just one recommendation.
The only problem is that you could end up with consistently doing 9. So why are you doing less than you projected?
Okay, maybe we just get written views from everybody because we'll run out of time if we discuss each thing.
Can I make a suggestion that you qualify this paragraph here by stating that you're statutorily required to meet 4 times a year, so that folks get the picture that 9 or 12 is still, double the amount that you're required to do,
Well, 4.
I think that's a good notation, because that puts it in perspective and context.
Then this one single paragraph looked to me to be too short. So I looked at the 17 report, and this is what was there. And I thought if we have something similar this year, maybe we could add it. Because just one paragraph, board's activities is just this. We met and we had coffee and went home. I mean, it doesn't look all that exciting. So we can think about a similar information. We have it and we want to include it. We don't have to finalize it now. It's just a comment.
Another suggestion here, maybe just calling out some of the important meetings. whether you want to talk about reviewing the MMP performance, the audit report, some of the big ticket items you probably can highlight in that section.
And I was also thinking adding in on the Solar for All and subcommittee and the PSC work groups and all those things that are technical.
I was just to build on what Becky basically just said. In a way, it should be tied to future 2017's looking ahead. I mean,
Right, and that is in
looking
the
ahead.
subcommittee, okay.
So that solves the problem with what was FY.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, so then we move to the next one, which is the changes to contract. I think this is complete. There was only this change for the Solar for All, and I put a footnote to show where people get more information about Solar for All, just in case somebody says, where is it? So there's a footnote there. Please see the site. And I don't think we need to add anything more, but in
Weren't there
case.
just 3 or 4 modifications that we spent a lot of time on?
This one,
In
this one
FY18, remember
yeah.
we're covering fiscal year 18,
18.
so there are only 2 modifications that would apply to 18, the Solar for All, and the second one was after we paid out the incentive amount, we had to adjust the claim table to no longer withheld as much as we were originally for the performance incentive. And we also received from funding from PGM that we added to the contract.
Yeah, so all of the provisions, all of the modifications, they were mainly money related, just adding money. But this one, this was a substantial modification, and even though the keywords were provisions to support, because even though this was just one mod, it went to how they were going to count jobs, how they were going to do the program design, how the admin cost would have been. So it was a meaty modification. So not sure if you want a DOE to go into all of the things that were impacted by this month, but this was the main substantive modification in FY18 that was done around July to make provisions for them to design the Solar 4 program, money for it, because it added that 33 million, everything was kind of laid out.
There was a little bit of money spent in 18
Yeah,
towards.
the program design, and then they had to also prepare to launch it. So
Teresa, is there a one-sentence way, of describing the impact? In other words, putting the blood into the skeleton?
yeah, we can
Because that
highlight.
would make it easier to frankly know why one's reading it. What was
Yeah, I think so,
I mean, it's
because
getting
it
back
looked
to-
like two bare bones
Yeah.
to me. It looked too legalistic. You say, okay, guys, you did it, but why did you do it? What the hell is this all about?
How does
Yeah.
it improve things?
Yeah, I think it's good
Okay,
to read. I
we
think
can
it's good.
add that. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so next.
And changes in contract that are major for this year, can that be put in the forward-looking? Can we pile on in the forward-looking and then some?
Then what would we write in the
Just
FY19?
to keep it, this is the marketing side of me, just keeping it relevant, making it, PC council.
I guess I'm not sure what kind of changes you're referring to that we didn't also talk about last year and that we're talking about
It's
this year in the
the,
context of the subcommittee. Right, so that's, I think, I started to discussing it in the executive summary, maybe,
Yeah,
I
so
don't know,
maybe.
I'll
Let's go back to.
collaborate with Millie offline on that.
So can we?
Yeah, the next one.
Legislative other changes now. Other is a very open.
Yeah, so this looks ridiculously sparse to me.
Right,
So
so
first
this
of all,
one
like
was-
we talked about, the clean energy omnibus bill may have been technically not, signed into law until 19, but a lot was going on in 18 on it already. So we should talk about it. And then clean energy, wasn't the greenhouse gas reduction target and the building code and a whole bunch of things happened.
Right. This is only the legal side, but the other changes part, we need some information, because otherwise it looks like it was business as usual, but it
Well,
wasn't.
that impacted the SCU contract. I think that's what, based on the title, definitely Clean Energy DC, it definitely added money and the EE programs and such at the
But the
utility
question's
companies.
like making, whenever we keep talking about the code, every time the code ratchets up, and it means that what's
The baseline.
baseline is moving, and so then you have to go into, I would regard that as an impact of the SU contract.
Okay, but I think if this is the determination, then we can add, because I think we were just thinking strictly of what happened,
Okay, yeah,
what was
no,
passed
no,
in FY18 by September 30 of last year, and we couldn't come up with things that actually happened that impacted the contract that officially passed.
But Teresa, I agree, we can say no legislative changes, but
we can talk about
under the other
other-
changes,
Yeah.
we can say there were
Right.
other changes.
And,
Okay.
and the
Right.
council reading this was involved in often in those changes,
Right.
again, to make it relevant and
I
acknowledge
agree.
what they're
See
doing.
I think we should
Right.
do
Okay.
those other,
Let's
and it
try
does, and we don't say there the contract, it just says that impacted the DCSU, so
Right.
if we don't have the word contract in the heading, I think we are okay. Sort of, if we did good things, why not put them there?
Okay, we'll.
Well, but it's also not just the good things, it's the heightening the challenges and needing to figure out.
That's
how
also
to-
be in there too.
Yeah,
It's also true. So
Okay.
we should have that.
thank
Okay.
you. So is everybody gonna send in their suggestions as to what to add in there, or you guys are again capturing?
Yeah, this is part of our section, but
Okay.
we just were taking a strict look, so we'll,
Yeah, don't be strict.
okay, we'll add.
But
Okay,
at least
we'll
you're
have an opportunity
capturing the
to look at it
suggestions
Monday,
Yeah.
orally.
Monday, right?
Right,
So we don't
clean
have to-
energy,
Yeah.
omnibus,
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have to sign
codes, the omnibus.
codes.
Okay, on natural gas, this is just the text from last year. Everything just crossed out to indicate what was the kind of information that was presented last year. And if gas company is going to look for it, great, this is the kind of information. So you don't have to find where's last year's report, it's here. Alright, so you can I will just wait for you to provide that information. Alright, and you can contact me directly and we can both look at the NMR report and see how it works. So nothing here to discuss. The electricity consumption, we got this from Petco last night around 10 p.m. or 9:30 p.m. So I have just copied it straight here. I didn't have chance to read it or look at it. But it looks like, Petco's job is very similar or good as last year's report. But I'll go through it later. We didn't have time to look at it. The tables need to be formatted, but I'll take care of that. We did get increasing renewable energy generating capacity. We did get an input. This is from the PSC. And there are some issues about it because it's not about FY18. Because it starts with as of July 1, 2019, but that's not FY18, right? That's already in FY19.
This calendar year.
So if we want, so the whole thing is, and then there is this thing between October 1, 2018 and July 1, 2019. That's definitely not FY18.
Could this be made as a subsection of the forward-looking thing? In other words, just instead of 7, it could be
I think we should stop
10A.
dumping everything into the forward.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be the
I mean,
whole
so I think
report.
we're supposed to be reporting on what went on in
FY18, right? So that's what I'm pointing out, that this is not FY18. And last year we just had nothing. We had just a reference. Please see this report.
Yeah, last year was a link to the actual compliance filing that the PSC did.
And there was
But
not a
this
single
year-
word in
And
it.
it was applicable to the reporting year of FY17.
Right. So
Well, I guess the key question is, do we want to report about the SEU's benchmark or report about renewable energy in the district as a whole? This language here is geared toward the district as a whole and not to the DCS.
Well, I thought that the key was what has the SEU done that spurs what we're seeing in the district?
Yeah, well, then we would need to
That's the
rephrase
time.
that. We can start by laying out what the SEU did and put it in context of what the district achieved as a whole. The only problem is this report spans calendar year 2018, which, it's pretty much half of what the fiscal year the DCSU would
So
cover.
I think that it's a new author, so I think we, should help in terms of figuring out how to frame it, but I do think that the critical tie
Mhm.
is
Putting it in
how do
context
the
of what, yeah.
SEU
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, so,
Okay.
drive this?
the energy here, the renewable energy is one of our performance benchmarks. So we
Right.
should report on what we were able to accomplish in that fiscal year
Mhm.
towards this.
But since the whole
You-
idea
you
was you
could
guys
then
are
blend
changing the market, like raising people's consciousness.
Vicky, it sounds like
General
you
awareness.
have this written in your head.
Hardly, because I could say what I think is
Yeah, I mean, maybe with.
would be helpful, but somebody
It
needs to
sounds
help.
like.
Yeah.
This was
So you-
pre-solar for all.
It's pre-solar.
Yeah.
It sounds like
We
this
still have-
offline.
We'll have
should be
an
dealt
offline
with
conversation.
offline. Yeah, 'cause-
And then there was one sentence here at the end which said, this does not include the solar facilities approved as a non-solar tier 1 system. Now that's a fact, but it had no meaning to me. Why are we saying this? So that throughout the report, I want to know why are we saying it? What is the implication of this? So I don't want to dwell on this, but it's just an example of me trying to see that it communicates something to the reader. Is this an important fact, or is this a minor fact, or what does it mean? So we need to, I'm trying to check that every sentence has some meaning and is conveying something, especially to the policymakers. Okay, so we can go through this. This came from OPC, and it did come in time for me to edit it mildly, and it looks good. The information is well presented, and I have very few comments on it. And the only comment I have is to the board that there are certain paragraphs here or certain sentences which say the board feels this or that the board wants to do this, and I just want to make sure that the board actually does feel that way.
Right, and those are the kinds of things that we vote on.
That's kind of the beginning sentence right there. If I read it, the characterization of our state in 17 is lackluster.
That's what it says in the 17 report.
That's what it said. It was a direct quote.
It's a direct quote from the 17 report.
It's interesting that you characterize the results as lackluster when they exceeded the maximum targets.
I'm just, it is exactly what is said in the 17 report. It's not.
This is low income.
Low income.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I was like, you didn't exceed. You met the minimum, but you didn't exceed.
Actually, we are going
All
to.
right.
Actually, we are going to praise you here, Ted.
I praised you,
That
Ted.
you, that you did a terrible job.
Figure this one out.
But maybe, but to your point, maybe you could add in for low income.
What?
That's a
Does it
section.
go to
There's a
the-
heading. There's a heading.
Yeah.
We just can't see it above.
Yeah.
Okay, we can add.
Can we add that the goal wasn't agreed upon?
Yeah, all of that's in there. I mean, if you read the
So
section.
lackluster, but not.
No, I mean, it
Yeah.
was the report is to be honest of what occurred in FY
Right.
2017. We referred that considering what happened in FY 2017, you didn't have the contract in place in time. There were several barriers to reaching that. But for FY 2018, you did very well. And if you read it, you'll be very happy with what we said. But
So when it goes out, everyone will be able
right,
to read
yeah,
it.
it wasn't like horrible,
And
but
there is plot.
yeah, right. There's a build up
Does
to.
everybody
But the
vote
key
on?
sentence is here. The key point is here that the board is saying that we would rather have investments in homes with deep energy efficiency measures and not focus on clinics and shelters. And I don't have a view on it, but I just want to be sure that this is the board's view on it.
Well,
Right?
then let me say there were 2 points when Adrian and I were discussing it.
Right.
She did the drafting. That was one of my principal questions, whether or not we had reached consensus, whether or not it should be OPC believes versus the board.
Right.
But we have discussed it, and I was fairly confident that it would be something that we would reach consensus on, but it's open.
Right, and I think that's the purpose of this group writing, which is that we throw out there the proposed positions and then
Right.
everyone votes.
And I have highlighted it just
Yeah.
so that
No, that's
people
great.
are, okay, and then there is just go up there. The draft also says the board encourages DCSU. Now, there should be consensus on that, so I'm just highlighting
Right.
that there should be consensus on this part. Okay.
And if not, then we will just.
If not, then we
It
will
will be
adapt. So
OPC.
this is highlighting the place where there should be some discussion and people can send comments in writing instead of just like this. Okay, so let's go on. Green jobs also well written. And I really don't have any questions except when we come down to a little bit lower. We have the table and it shows that they pretty much met the target except then there's this one whole paragraph which was also there in the 17 report and which has been brought into the 18 report, and I just couldn't understand what the point was.
Is it this highlighted section here?
Yeah, it just says that we have a tracking system and this is what we track. I say, okay, good, you have a tracking system and this is what you track. Now can you tell me
Has
what
it changed at all?
no, what you got out of it? Why are you telling me that
Well,
you
it
track?
could be, FY17 was the first year after the multi-year contract was signed, so maybe this was just saying this is the robust way in which we are tracking new jobs. So maybe that's like a one-time thing. It's that is an annual goal.
Maybe
So-
that's what you should say, this is the robust way in which we.
And it continues, through the 5-year base contracts, so it need not.
Yeah,
maybe we don't have to
if we
repeat
have
it.
that, then we can just put it as a footnote, right? I'd rather put it in a footnote to say that they have an ongoing system which tracks these
Still in
following
place.
things. Because the section ends there and you say, really? This is it? You are leaving me high and dry over here?
Okay.
Okay, so let's go on to the next one.
That's, yeah.
Well, maybe we should do it.
Ted,
Put in the numbers.
Yeah, we can work to populate that.
Ted just had a great.
Okay, this was the section that you drafted, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I was just hesitant to delete anything that was in the.
Right.
It's bad language, it just needs a little bit of
Yeah,
population of numbers.
fine, then that would help, right? No, I will. Alright, so let's just go to the next one. Leveraging external funds. I added the draft I got didn't have the goal of 5 million in new funds that was there in the 17 report. So I brought that back. The draft I got only said they had only 230,478, but I looked up the old number that was 139,000, and I added that the increase is nearly 66%.
Okay,
So
now,
that
I
we
sent you some updated numbers.
Yeah,
on
that's
this.
the
So
number,
those are
the
reflected.
230.
Those
Yeah.
are the updated numbers.
Yeah.
And then, this whole question, this is a paragraph which I just took from FY17 report, because I thought, the board should say something about the leveraging of external funds. It just not report the numbers, but to say we like it, we love it, it's a great thing that they are doing. So I just put in some language there, which is a summary of what the board had said in 17. And again, I've highlighted it in case people want to change it or they want to keep it. All right, so let's go. This is something I don't have, the new
So Lily's
version.
gonna do this one,
Right.
the peak demand,
Right.
and then the next one also AOBA.
We don't have it. Innovation, we don't have.
So
This
is Richard
was-
still on the phone?
Aoba Richard,
No.
Kevin.
Kevin Carey.
No, that's AOBA. Richard
So I'm
Graves
looking
is
for
doing
Richard.
innovation.
Richard Graves, that's the person listed
Yeah.
for
Oh,
innovation,
he's
right?
Shay's rep.
Yeah, actually, I think I missed it.
No, he was on the phone. I don't think he is now.
Okay, so we don't have that.
Whatever.
But these are the two paragraphs that we had last time, so maybe we don't need a whole lot. But that's,
Yes, the UI, remember, was going to provide some input. Is there input that the SBU wants to be offering? I don't know if you guys have coordinated yet with Richard on it.
I gave input on 2 of the topics where they were requested that you guys to Dr. Lawrence.
Right, the leveraging,
yes,
the
and-
CBE,
yes.
and then the third one was actually engagement.
Community outreach.
Yeah, we
It's
didn't
coming,
ask,
it's coming.
but if I
I
guess
think here we
another-
we would also welcome some input here,
Right.
Ted, for
as a
what you've
fourth
done
area.
along the innovation field. I know
Yeah.
you've had a couple of innovation programs that you can highlight.
Yeah, we're happy to.
What's the
I'll write a
ENC?
couple paragraphs there.
Enterprise.
Enterprise.
Okay.
So the next one is the societal cost test. We got that from Nina. It's well written as always. I did some minor editing. Nina has a question there. Further details needed at this early stage of committee establishment exploration. My thought was yes.
And, okay.
I've got a couple things. So this second, you're saying that this aligns with the Clean Energy DC, but a whole bunch of the discussion when that bill was being formulated was about the cost to district residents and businesses. So, it started off as the carbon fee proposal and switched to this, and a big part of it was saying, hey, the carbon fee and figuring out how we can get down to something that does not impact residents' pockets, businesses' pockets as much. So when we're saying here that we want to look at societal benefits, and it's sort of sounding like getting around the issue of the dollar impact and saying that aligns with the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Act, and I don't see that alignment there.
The goals of reducing carbon in Clean Energy DC and that are embedded in the Omnibus Act mean a lot of electrification over time. And I know for Washington gases, it's very sensitive issue.
And specifically,
this is SEU and DOE are part of how we're getting to these very serious goals, and I don't think this is descriptive. I don't think it's a policy statement. It's reflecting what policy is and describing a reality, and not judging.
Well, it says would allow for broader societal impacts and align the work more strongly. And so I guess my point is that a big piece of the discussion around that act was how do you avoid the impact to low-income residents, to businesses.
Yeah, low-income residents, SCU is, the whole country and the whole world is dealing with how to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in an affordable way. And with all due respect, we're trying to do it too here, and with all due respect to the gas company, and I don't am at all looking forward. And that's, I'm not the only one to say that. The chair of the commission said that 2 years ago during the merger. Why would Alta want to acquire a gas company that's in a jurisdiction that's looking to decarbonize? And so I don't want to fight that fight here, but with all due respect, there are affordable, on the market, proven technologies that are highly efficient, HVAC equipments, and creating a market for them nationwide will pull the price down, and also some of them are already competitive.
Can I just add?
So I don't want to fight the big carbon
Hi,
debate
Nina,
here.
this is Donna, and I wanted to try to reconcile what Ronan is saying as
Maybe
well.
I'm
I
not
want to make sure.
understanding.
Yeah, maybe I'm not missing. Ronan, were you asking for some level of interjection in her section that really just states that there was within that process discussions and concerns that were advanced about the impact to low to moderate income customers, and that based on the actions that we have pursued as a city and will continue to pursue, we will always have an eye towards that. And just as an example, with the section that talks about energy efficiency specific to electric as well as gas, there was specific language that was put in that legislation that focused on the low to moderate income customers and advancing programs and initiatives that speaks to that particular population, because there is a need to focus more extensively on that population from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective, as well as the inherent interrelationship between cost reductions with the program implementations as well.
Donna, I think, I think I have a solution to this, Donna and Ronan, and that is, this is dealing with societal impacts and broadening the effectiveness, and the cost, of course, includes the financial cost in weighing how one, phases these things in. So I think maybe what it lacks is with an eye to affordability. So if with your permission, I think we can add something that thought of phasing things in with an eye to affordability as always.
I-
That's something,
but the-
Sandra, maybe you can hear from you.
No, I'm saying that the affordability issue is going to be the challenge.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, but what I heard from Ronan, I thought, was more of the generic, the general issue, as echoed by Donna, that affordability has to be at the forefront. And the societal costs, are there. And the challenge, and I personally don't even know if we're going to be able to meet that challenge, is to advance the societal impact, advance the societal costs with the affordability, because, not to be flippant, but if people can't afford it, then it doesn't really matter. What are you going to do? You're going to push them off into some, island where
But
it's not an
75% of emissions and energy
And
use
it's environmental.
roughly are from large buildings here. And the HVAC systems for large buildings are really a huge component of dealing with emissions. I'm talking about emissions here. There are other societal
So my
costs.
suggestion,
So
I'm
that
sorry, you
doesn't-
guys, it's past now 12, I'm sorry. I think it's a really, really, really important conversation, obviously. So we didn't get to 3 topics on the agenda. I'm not sure if any, were drivers for this, but I would maybe ask if the people who were going to speak, which was a recap of, or legislative update by Hussein, and he's not here, recap of benchmark subcommittee, and I think you were gonna circulate your notes from the last meeting, and the recap of the omnibus working group. If you could send us a note, that would be helpful, especially if it's gonna inform any of this report writing. But I would say, that let's get our comments in enough time so that we can set aside, I don't know if we can wait a month for conversation.
You can have a call.
If we can do a call
Yeah.
next week and maybe pick some of these issues that need group resolution, because,
Kind of narrow it down.
yeah, or we start going through the list.
Yeah.
I think that's a
The
good
more will
idea.
arise,
is
so can
always
we try and do a Google poll for a call next week, people get comments in, and then this is just in isolating some of the big issues that need some discussion.
Great.
That would be really helpful.
You sent them around, you sent the comments around,
The comments,
the report.
the report has been sent around, and there's a hard copy in your,
International.
in your package, and then I think a new, start getting comments in on what there is by Friday, so that you can send us a draft on Monday,
Sunday night.
Sunday night. Does that work for you, or you need them Thursday, Friday?
Comments
Okay.
by, hang on.
And then we'll talk next
I mean, you
week.
can send me
Hang on,
comments
hang on,
till
guys.
Sunday
And
5 p.m.
Some of us have
And
to file
Vicki, this is
med
Donna. I had sent a revision to my area on this morning. Just wanted to make sure that you and the doctor are working from that version.
No,
We will
this is the version that we got
From
last
last
evening.
night.
Last
So
night.
we'll make sure we incorporate that, Donna.
Okay, thank you so much.
So you want comments by when?
So I think comments by Friday for the next draft and a call next week, but if that's overly ambitious, then we should do 2 weeks.
It's very hard, because some of us who don't have one.
Sure, so do 2 weeks?
That would be
So,
that would
Okay.
here we are,
very helpful.
like, wow, August.
And some new
already
in,
this far
and some
ahead
in
in our
the
report.
inputs that have
Good
not
idea,
yet come.
Millie, with it.
In 2 weeks, we also would like to get the inputs.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
the raw and.
And so let me just finish this last bit so that we know where we are.
Siobhan, in order for us to comment on it, Vicki, would it make sense, to ask for, I don't know, again, I mean, the resource stretch for many people. But is it reasonable to ask people who haven't seen it yet to have it in by a week? And then we can all review the entire first.
I don't know, I would
I don't
think
know.
that they don't wait,
Right.
because I think some of these things are gonna require discussion regardless
Yeah.
of the inclusion of the other. Yeah, I would say no,
It just seems, if you have it, go ahead and look at it
yeah.
any
So-
other time.
So let's
as
say the
opposed to
week
waiting.
of the 23rd, we'll have a call, so get comments in on what you see before then. And we'll have a call the week of the 23rd, and Lenora, if you could send around to do a poll for that, would be great.
That week is tough for me, I think, but
The 23rd.
24th, 25th.
Right now, our next meeting.
Let's see what the new.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just look at the CBE part. Teresa, can we just go back?
To the
Yeah.
CBE?
Okay, we have only a one-line statement here.
That's all we ever have.
That's all we ever have, it's fine. And I added that exceeded this goal by 20%. So Ted, are you listening? You didn't write this as 20%, but I gave you that 20%. Ted's not listening.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. And then
And
SCU is going to be providing.
SCU, okay, so that's the end of it. So I think that's, is there anything else? Yeah, going forward, we need that. And that's it. So there's a lot of information that's yet to come.
Yeah, that's
Right? And in the meantime, if you have personal comments, you can just send to me through Dr. Lawrence, or she will give you my email address.
Yes, it will circulate.
Yeah,
so
and
for-
they could just send to me. And I said I read my emails 24/7. Even at night. Huh?
When you're not shopping with your wife.
Well, even then I'm reading. She's shopping. I just have to pay the bill.
Vicky, GOE, and Dr. Chabot, good work and herding
excellent.
cats. I mean,
Good work, Ruth,
Uh,
getting all your
yeah.
pieces in and your good
and
contributions.
everybody
Bob,
has a very good excuse.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Well
thank
done.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll adjourn?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, we're gonna disconnect the call now.
Music.